This is launching your indie game on Steam, and we're looking at 4 indie game developers. I'm Mike Stumhofer. My game is called Depth of Extinction. You can actually play it here. Full disclosure, I have not launched yet, but I still have a little bit of things to share, but I'm gonna...
You haven't launched on Steam yet.
I haven't launched on Steam. I haven't launched First Access on itch.io, so... Go ahead.
And I'm Stu Phelps. I have a game that is launched on Steam. And it's Neon the Ninja. It's an early access, and you can play it here as well. And it's amazing.
It is amazing. Yeah. And I'm Robert Wahler. I have a couple games on Steam. One that didn't do so well. I made all my mistakes on it, and then one that's doing pretty well now. And you can play it at the hall here. It's called Sinker. So I'm really excited to talk to you.
He's a finalist for the prize here.
Yeah.
I'm Kevin Dressel. I helped launch Clash Force on Steam with the guy in the hat in the back.
He took it off. He took the hat off.
And we've got a couple other games, Holy Roll and Zap Blast 'em. All 3 you can play downstairs.
All right, so we're going to talk about kind of the 4 phases of launching your game on Steam, which is kind of like the early development, pre-release, release, and then post-release. But first, I'm going to give you a little bit of like a reality check on Steam. So we'll talk real briefly about some of the numbers for Steam. So the median price for all games on Steam is $5.99. For an indie game, that number is $3.99. Now, for an indie game released in 2017, that number is $2.99. Okay? Now, median owners, this is data from Steam Spy, so I don't know if you guys are familiar with Steam Spy, but it measures owners from Steam, not necessarily buyers, but it's a good measure to look at. So the median owners for a game is 5,000 for an indie game. Now, for an indie game launched in 2017, that number is 1,500. So you can kind of do the math real quick and show that an indie game released in 2017 is, $3 times 1,500 is $4,500. Steam takes 30% cut. That means that you are making median about $3,000 on an indie game released in 2017. Now, but there are a few good things. I'm gonna let Robert kind of talk about those real quick.
Good things.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've released on mobile and Steam, and Steam is by far my favorite platform. Mostly because Steam actually is one of the few platforms that shovels people to your page so they can see your game without you actually having to do anything. And that's just amazing. You have to have a game that people want to buy, but as long as you continue to sell games, Steam will continue to send you people. And they do this by several methods. One of them, they have this thing called a discovery queue. And that's really important during Steam sales. And they actually ask people to go and look at games and give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Cool. So I think when we talk about the early part of like launching your game on Steam, we're talking more about market research. So what is it that makes you come up with a game idea? And how do you decide if it will sell?
Well, we just made what we wanted to make. I think you did more market research, but we have looked around like Steam tags especially to figure out like how we were going to do, but we kind of did that after the fact, but it probably is better to do some market research up front. With Zap Blast 'em, I did have a lot of like iteration on the design concept, like figuring out what our core idea was. I think it's really important to know like a quick 1-sentence description of your game. That's really important for the marketing stuff.
Yeah.
That you can talk about.
What about you, Stu? How did you do with market research?
Probably not great. But I think that's the big thing is knowing going in whether you're going to do well or not. And obviously it's all guesstimating. But I mean, there's certain trends you can look at. I made a platformer. That's going to be harder to sell than maybe some other trend that's a little bit, or some other genre that's a little more on trend. But that being said, knowing that going in, and then it's like you can break down, well, what makes mine stand out, right? I'm not going to sell it as just a platformer. I'm going to sell it as an action stealth game where you're a ninja and you have these bright colors and you blend into the neon signs into the shadows. Like, you have to find a way to sell your game. And it's not all about that genre, it's just finding that hook.
Yeah, that was really important for us too. When we first put Clash Force on Steam, like the coming soon page, because before you can launch your game on Steam, you have to put up a coming soon page for a couple of weeks.
So
people
how
can start
soon should
wishlisting.
you put a coming soon page up?
As early as you can, but it's really important to make it good.
Definitely.
Why is it
About
important?
that. Well, because on the very first day of your coming soon page going up, Steam is going to funnel tons of traffic to you, thousands of people.
So make sure you're ready.
Yeah, you
Put
don't
that
want to
page
have your
up.
coming soon page like ugly because people just pass it up.
Or with a crappy trailer.
And that's what was important for us, because when we put our coming soon page up, we just said Clash Force is a retro platformer. And that was like not an interesting enough hook, like what Stu was talking about. So we realized what was interesting about the game was it's like inspired by Saturday morning cartoons from the 80s. But we realized that after seeing our traffic and seeing how the traffic was disappointing compared to other similar games, we realized we made a mistake.
So what's the thing that people look at when they see your Steam page?
Short description for sure is big.
Well, first, visual style. They just want to know if it's something that just jumps out at them. Like, you should definitely figure out your branding, figure out how you're selling it, get a really unique look. I know pixel art is a great way to go when it comes to time and scope, but how can you make your pixel art stand out if that's the direction you're going? If it's 3D, if it's like polygon, is it low res, polygon, that's probably another direction indies are gonna go, but like how can you make that stand out? It's all about standing out, and honestly, like mocking up your thumbnail, just like compared to like just do a screenshot of all the thumbnails on Steam in that genre, and just seeing if yours stands out.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
That's a great thing that helps me.
I think the other thing you have to remember is, so I looked at some data on my coming soon page, which has been up for about 10 months now, and one thing I noticed is the average time people spend on the page is about 12 seconds. So that should tell you something right there, like what are people doing in that time? Really that first screenshot I think is really critical. So you need to make sure that screenshot sells your game. It needs to tell a story about what your game is. I think also the icon needs to tell a story about your game.
And then obviously the trailer is super important, but that's when they've actually invested the time to not click away. And then coming back to the description, I think, in my opinion, that's where they go next, is the description, and then they might scroll down and do that deeper dive. But you can't really assume anybody's going to scroll.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out though is don't wait too long, because it's really, I think people would agree, and Mike may even have some numbers, but if you iterate on it so long and don't release your page because you're worried about that first bump, you're probably not doing the right thing. You want to get it out. If you can have it out for a whole year before you release, that's awesome, because you'll build up your wish list, you'll build up, it's more time is better. And so I think the bump on the first few days isn't worth spending a couple months in-house iterating. So get it out as soon as you can.
All right, so I think the only other thing that we wanted to mention about the Steam page is the tag optimization, which Kevin kind of mentioned. I can tell from my experience with tag optimization is I had probably 4 or 5 tags. I didn't realize this was a big thing. And tags you don't actually add through the back end, you add them just from the page itself. You can go in and just add tags like a user can.
What is a tag?
A tag is just I guess I should have a visual up, but it's right underneath the icon on the Steam page, there's a list of tags, and you can click a little plus button to add more tags, and anyone can add them. Then they get upvoted by other users who think they're relevant to the game. I can tell you this makes a huge difference in your traffic. I had a big bump when I first launched, then it got down low. It was like almost nothing for a long time, and then somebody mentioned this to me, and so I went in and looked at tags of other similar games and added like 20 tags. The next day I had like 1,000 users visit the page. Because that's how Discovery Queue works. They actually use the tag data to match you up to potential buyers.
And very important, not just Discovery Queue, but Justin and I deliberately matched Cuphead's tags, and we launched right about the same time. And we ended up in Cuphead's More Like This as like the second spot. That was huge.
Yeah,
absolutely huge.
Who knows what the game would have done without that?
Exactly. It might not have been nearly as successful.
Right, and buyers get to pick tags, but as a developer, you get first choice at picking the tags, and that will guide how your game gets categorized.
I feel like buyers aren't necessarily adding tags; they're more upvoting.
Yeah, that's true.
You want to set the tone
Yeah, you
so that
definitely
they
want to set the
decide, what they like to click on. I agree with
I mean, we're talking a lot about tags, but I think tags are one of the most important and underrated aspects of the Steam page.
You shouldn't underestimate.
Go look at the number of games that have like 2 tags or something. It's kind of hilarious. And another thing is I notice people all the time will complain, oh, my game didn't do well on Steam, and I go look at their page. First thing I notice is they have 3 tags. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm not surprised.
And I'm afraid if we're kind of deep diving, if people have questions, let's ask them now. I think that we'd agree that
Yeah,
would
it's
be great. So,
Conversational.
yeah,
Just raise your hand. Yeah, go ahead.
Has there been any manipulation of those, as in, for example, a developer knows, like, for example, like, can a developer...
So Steam has a way for a user to flag a tag they think is not relevant. If you're saying I added a tag like virtual reality and my game is not virtual reality, somebody could go and flag it.
Yeah, like
it's
with
not
the
relevant.
Cuphead thing, we picked tags that matched both games. Just happened to match a lot of things. So.
but you can't put Cuphead as a tag, right? That's not cool.
That's one thing.
Steam has a set.
Okay.
Mm.
I'm more concerned of, like, I read stories about how some developers, they, make fake users to upvote their own tags or something like that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about that. That's not bad.
No, I actually know about that. I bought a game. There was a ban for that just a few months ago. It's a bad thing, and if you're caught at it, don't do it.
Most devs
Generally,
have
it's not
two Steam accounts, so you can go in and vote it for your studio account and your personal account.
Yeah,
Yeah, but other people are gonna knock those down if they're not real.
Like you can reach out to friends and family and just say, hey, can you enter these tags for me? I think that's probably fine. But getting bots to do it is one to probably be unreasonable.
Yeah.
The next thing I think we should talk about is...
we had another question.
Oh yeah,
back
sorry,
there.
go ahead.
Well, it's just something to kind of add to it. The tags will help you, like they're what lets you get seen by the search engine. If you have a website for your game, you need to also add basically tags to that too.
It's true.
Sure, but we're talking more about Steam, so yeah.
But yeah, it's very...
But so how do you decide on the price for your game?
That is a good question.
So
Tell me your thought process.
Since my game is a dollar game, maybe I'll take that question to start off with. But my goal was different from probably other people's. I wanted this is the first game I wanted a lot of people to actually play and try to build up like a long tail of people that are saying, hey, I played a game by that guy because I only had to pay $1, and maybe I can have a lot of people next time play my second game and then inch the price up. If that works, I'll let you guys know 5 or 10 years, but that's my thought. I wanted a lot of people to play my game. It's no fun to make a game for a year or so and then have nobody play it. So I priced it low, and I think that was the right thing for me to do.
There is a risk of undervaluing your game.
Yeah, you can
and we made that mistake. I
Yeah,
feel.
you can definitely signal value with price.
Yeah.
But in my genre, it's unique because as a minimalist game, it's expected to be in the $1 to $2 range, so it's okay.
Yeah, a big part of it is, keeping current with the genre, the trends. Definitely, my game, 5 years of nights and weekends. I'm not making a game every year. I'm kind of putting a lot of eggs in one basket. I work a full-time job, don't worry, I'm fine. But what I mean is, I'm not going to have another game released very soon, probably, most likely, because of the type of games I like to make. So I kind of did a different approach where, again, it was more about not undervaluing it. I'm kind of expecting, maybe only so many people will see it, but as long as they see it, and when they see it, they'll see a suggested, hopefully, they'll see a perceived value by the price point that I picked. So I kind of looked at all the games in the genre and tried to pick that kind of comfortable value. And also keeping in mind sales. So like when Steam does sales, that's when people are actually buying. So you need to kind of, when you're going above $1 or $2, I picked $10 for early access. My plan is like $15 after early access. But $10 in early access, this weekend I have a 25% sale. You should go buy it. And it's at $7.50. That's when I actually expect to see people buy it. When they start seeing it, and then in 6 months and a year when I actually go even deeper.
I think if you look at the genre and look at similar games and you price differently than those games, you're sending a message. So you price lower, you're saying my game's not as good as those games. You price higher, you say my game is better than those games. And the other thing, like they said, to take into account is the sale. I think you don't want to price your game like it's on sale. Price your game like you know that most people will buy it on sale.
Yeah.
So make the sale price what you expect to put it on sale at. That's the price. So if you think your game's worth $15, price it at $20, and then put it on sale. you know? So I think that's probably another good way to think about it.
Yeah, there's sort of a subconscious psychological language of the price, maybe. Like I've heard, like under $10 people sort of perceive as a budget title.
But I've heard recently that $10 or $9.99 is kind of an impulse buy point too, especially for like small indie games. Like you can look at a good example recently is Minute. If you guys heard of Minute, it's a pretty interesting game. But the reason they picked the $9.99 price point is they really wanted to try and get that impulse buy on day one, so they get into new and trending. And I think it worked pretty well for them. So, so how do you know when you're ready to launch? Like, from a quality or a content perspective, can you guys give us some thoughts on that?
It's hard.
Maybe Stu, can you start? Because you kind of...
Yeah, again, like I'm in early access. Originally I didn't want to do that at all, but I realized it's not the 90s. And the kind of game that I'm making, if I wait until it's 100% done, I guess for context, it's kind of the scope of a SNES or Sega Genesis console era game. But wait, you know, if I wait until the end when it's like perfectly wrapped up with a ribbon and it's ready to go, probably nobody will hear about it because I'll market it, but I'll only have one shot. Whereas like I figured, you know, I've been working on this long enough. I've hit all the levels. I hit everything about the game is pretty much done. The main mechanics are solid, and I know what all my boss fights. I think I know what all my boss fights are going to be. This last year of development, I'm spending the time to really polish everything up. That's when I went to early access. So I know that I'm going to have a really steady early access release, and it'll give me multiple times to kind of like make people think about it again. Because everybody's got ADD, they're going to see your game and then forget about it. So that's kind of my thing
there, Robert. Like, how do you know when you're ready?
It really depends on the game, you know, your type of game. You certainly don't want to release it too soon. But I like to think about also timing it around Steam sales, because Steam is very sale driven. I think the majority of your sales will happen during the winter sale, the summer sale, and actually there's 3 sales during the autumn. There's a Halloween sale and there's one in November. So, and there are certain rules, you have to look them up, of how early you have to be released before you can actually participate in the sale. I think it's 30 days. So take that into account if you have the option of planning when you're going to release, to make sure that you can participate in the sales, because the majority of your income on Steam is during the sale. So that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, it was more about knowing when I needed to push the release date back. So I had originally planned to launch in February. I had some personal issues kind of disrupt that timing. And then I even decided that I needed more content in the game. So I think there's, you know, sometimes you have to make that tough call to say, hey, I just don't think the game is ready yet. I feel like I need more stuff, you know?
Yeah, that's basically our experience. We launched Clash Force, and boy, I cannot say that. But we sort of realized right after we launched that the feedback was that it was a little too short and a little too easy.
Yeah.
And we addressed it quick with an update, but you know, it's just hard to know. I think maybe with more play testing we'd have a better idea of how people would react.
Yeah, and it's so critical that first few weeks to have those things already figured out.
Yeah,
it's hard to figure it out
sales from it.
sometimes. So.
And as an indie, you really should push it back if you think there's a problem, because there's nothing worse than a botched launch. It's really hard to recover from it. As an indie, you probably have the flexibility to move things around, you know, financially, so do it. You know, delay
And there's
it.
probably not a ton of people that are going to be super disappointed, even if you have a big community. They're going to understand, you know, and people are understanding.
Yeah, it's not like AAA where changing a release date is like the
Right,
big problem.
you'll end up with tweet storms from
People would probably be like, cool, I believe in you.
Yeah,
As
they're
good
like,
as you
oh, that's
can.
great. I'm glad to hear it's going to be better, you know, or something.
Right. But don't yo-yo on the Steam upcoming list, because you'll get penalized for that. Like, but what I mean is, just say you're going to launch and then to say, oh, never mind, we got to wait.
Or if you're like
You can
me
leave it
and
as
this
coming
happened,
soon as long as you want.
and I accidentally forgot to update the date.
because
You kind of touched on this earlier, but how do you decide when to launch? Like the actual timing of the launch, Robert? You mentioned, like, how did you decide when to launch Sinker?
Oh yeah, well that again depends on who you're competing with, right? So I don't have a lot of competition because there's not a lot of minimalist games, but if I was releasing a game like Cuphead, I would probably not want to release during a time when Cuphead is releasing, because that seems kind of self-defeating. People will be focused on Cuphead and not my game. So you try to figure out games are releasing and pick a day. And there's some days that you don't want to pick, like Mondays and Fridays. Don't pick those days. They're just bad days. And,
Why is that?
nobody pays attention. Everybody's gone on Friday. Journalists don't want to write about things. They're already off for the weekend. They've already set their stories. They already know what they're going to print. So Friday's way too late. Lots of people don't pay attention on Monday. And this is just anecdotal that I've discovered over the years. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I think most media releases that, like film, movies, stuff like that. Those are the days they pick too. It just seems like you have a better response.
I think the other thing to consider is that the main driver of your release date should be trying to get press coverage. So you don't want to release around times that press are writing about other things. So don't release your game the same week as E3. Don't release your game the same week as PAX. The journalists are overwhelmed those weeks. They're
And
not even going to notice.
Also, like the winter season when a lot of AAA games
Yeah, that's
come
true
out,
too. So
people are on vacation.
try to find lulls in the news cycle for the game communities. You know, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
So, as indies, in the way that Steam takes their stance about if you have a reviewer and you gift the game to them, how it does not affect the overall score of the game. How is your feeling about that? As an indie, where you kind of thrive on as much.
Well, actually, Steam has changed this recently,
Okay.
so that now you don't necessarily have to give keys to reviewers. They have an actual system on the back end. That's the what is it called?
Curator.
Yeah, talk about that some, Robert. You've had some.
Yeah,
experience
I've
with
had
that.
a lot of experience with giving out keys and then using Curator Connect, and Curator Connect is actually really pretty good, so you don't have to actually worry about giving out keys. Not that you shouldn't, I mean, I still give out keys to some people, but Curator Connect works behind the scenes in the Steam partner site, so you just pick some folks, you get 100 keys for, they're not actually keys, but you get 100 chances to direct contact curators on Steam, and if they accept, they may or may not review your game, but that seems to be working out pretty well for me. So I've given away half of my allotment of 100s over a period of about 3 months, and that's working out pretty well.
How'd it work for you?
I would say the disclaimer is, again, I know this is like our answer for everything, but choose, like, I think curate your curators. Choose the right curators that you think would actually cover your game. Write personalized emails to press. Like, I haven't reached out to all the people I want to reach out to because I only have so much time in the day. When I look at streamers, press, I make sure I actually pay attention to their channel, find the right guy, email them, or message them through Twitch, which has worked sort of. I think email is really the most effective way. But if you could do that and then send that curator link, I think that's more
Yeah,
effective.
Stu is really right, because a lot of the people that you want to cover your game aren't on the curators list, so you're still going to have to deal with the Steam keys.
Well, and they also might be, but they might be just getting millions of who
Yeah, it
knows
could
how
be
many they're
inundated.
getting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess Charlie's question was also more about the actual Steam reviews, which
Yeah.
we had talked about. So,
Actually, if you give a key out, it doesn't count, right? It doesn't matter whether you're an official reviewer or curator or not. If you give away a key, it does not count for your score.
Yeah, it doesn't
And
count for the
notes.
score at the top
Got
of the
it.
page,
Yeah.
like the thing where it says positive, very
but
positive.
reviews
etc.
are reviews. I mean, even if it
Yeah.
doesn't count for the score, there's still something showing up there. If somebody had something positive to say.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, and reviews are so important because all the algorithms Steam uses, and they don't talk about them, but these are just anecdotal, but the algorithms are based on reviews, and if you don't have enough reviews, you don't get bumped up in the list and you don't get as many sales. So sometimes even bad reviews are better than no reviews at all, just because of the sheer number of
Well, if you want to
reviews.
talk about the algorithm, I actually watched a YouTube talk by a guy who was at GDC, and he went to some random dinner where you sit with a bunch of people, and he ended up with an engineer from Valve who worked on the algorithm, the magic algorithm. And this was a very interesting talk where he said that one of the main drivers is actually your first day conversion percentage, which means the number of people who went to your Steam page and bought the game. So, you know, if you can convert at like, I forget the number he said, but it was something like, the average was like 0.2%. And if you can convert at like 1%, you're a star on Steam. And so Steam's goal is to make as much money as possible, and that is by the games that get the biggest conversion percentage are the games that are selling more, right? So they know if this game sells at a higher rate than the other games, we need to show this game to more people.
So is a conversion somebody that sees your page and buys?
And buys, yeah.
Okay.
And so this is like a big thing, like how Steam determines who gets these featured spots. Also, I mean, I think there's multiple factors. Like Robert's saying, reviews certainly must be a factor in it as well. But I do think this conversion percentage is very important based on what this guy said in YouTube. So, and he actually did Hacknet, which is a pretty popular game if you've heard of that. So if you look up Hacknet, you'll find this guy's talk. It's pretty interesting. I recommend it. All right. So, anybody else have anything to say about reviews? Or Kevin, you got anything?
I need more.
What about when you first launch? I mean, don't you need to have some reviews, some people ready to review? Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So reviews are like developer gold. I think people that have been playing my game, I've been out on the floor, I've been asking everybody that shows an interest in the game, please review, because a review is like worth 1,000 sales. And I'm serious. Well, in the dollar range game, anyway, because it's just so important that your sales ranking based on reviews. So yes, you need to set the tone for reviews when you launch your game. So you need to make sure that people are reviewing your game before your game even goes on sale. I think you should kind of set the tone for people like to hear what other people think about something before they.
Yeah, even if they don't count toward the score,
yes,
they're still there.
But also be careful about giving away keys, because you want people to buy your game if possible. Otherwise, it doesn't count. So that's another consideration. But it's all review driven. As far as Mike says, there's lots of things that go into how Steam does their relevance ranking, but I think reviews are probably one of the biggest things. So that's really important. Don't neglect.
Well, I don't know. It depends on who you talk to, but what the other aspect of like keys and things like that is scammers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what your guys' experience has been with.
I haven't worried about it, to be honest. If people ask for a key, I've generally given them one, as long as they don't look completely off.
What if they say, I need a key for me and maybe 5 more for the rest of my team?
I've given them, it's only 6 keys. I don't think it's that big a deal, as long as it's not giving out thousands of them. This is my personal opinion.
Okay.
But I don't know, we're indies. I don't know. More people having the game. If they're gonna sell them, okay, more people have the game. I don't know.
I have an opposing point of view. Now, this is a debate, but I have a different type of game too. So my game has like a very, it's got a difficulty curve, and not everybody that picks it up enjoys it. they enjoy the art style, they get into it, but it's very skill based. Yeah, exactly.
Controller.
So I've been very protective of who I hand them out to. Are they the right kind of person that would stream a game like Cuphead, Dark Souls, something that could be frustrating or considered frustrating. So I've been super protective with just handing them out, because it's not that I'm worried about like a piracy thing or like them reselling it. It's more just them getting in the wrong hands and then just like starting a little trend of this guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah,
and then like
yeah.
kind of starting a wave of negative reviews or negative opinions of the game.
It definitely happens. Clash Force is up on resale sites and stuff, so.
I mean, I've been, so I haven't released obviously, so I'm not handing out keys yet, but I have been building up a list of people I'm going to send keys to. And one of the things I look at, if you're a YouTuber or Twitch person, even if you don't have a huge audience, I'm interested in people that are making content. So I check the channels.
Yeah.
If there's content, it looks like you're making content, even if you only have 100 followers, I'm going to probably give you a key, because any content is good content, in my opinion.
Yeah, but some people ask for a key and only never posted a video. And
Yeah, well,
those
those
are the
people
ones I filter out.
Yeah, I'm not giving those.
Or it's like been 4 years, or they've dropped off. It's been a long time.
What about Keymailer? You guys use?
I used it. Yeah, I also used the other one, the one that Tommy Isnell made. Forget the name.
I forget now.
Yeah, Distribute. Distribute. Yeah, they're somewhat equivalent. I don't know. As long as those tell you if they're verified or like what their rating is.
It's just another way to send keys to people.
Yeah.
Request keys to a game if you're a media person. What do you think? Robert's got an opposing opinion, I think.
Well, no, I just kind of ignore the key requests, because I've looked into them. They're mostly bogus. And if a YouTube streamer emails me and says, dude, I need 10 keys to review your game, but they don't even have an email address on their YouTube page but you can do the CAPTCHA to click through, that's, they just made up a Gmail address and trying to get keys. But again, I don't think it's worth time worrying about it, right? Because you don't really have the time to vet all these things. So send them keys, it's okay. It's okay if they go to key remailers or danfield.keys, and it doesn't really matter.
G2A.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter because in the end, it's just publicity. You could give away 1,000 keys and they could all, or you could even torrent your own game. And that's publicity. I mean, seriously, it's been done. It actually works. And I know when Sinker launched, actually before it launched, more people in China, I mean literally thousands of people were playing the game in China because they just took it off of the Android store. And it didn't bother me one whit because I've been in the software business for 2 decades, and I realized it's just not worth worrying about, and it's advertising. So don't spend a lot of time worrying about piracy or who's stealing your keys or what, but don't give them away willy-nilly because that just hurts you in the long run. But don't worry about it too much.
So what about after you release? How do you guys measure success? How do you decide if the game was a success for you?
Well, everybody has their own
Yes, that's a
goals,
personal
I think.
thing,
Yeah.
Well, talk about your thought
Success
process.
has a lot to do with how much you spend on the game, and what your expectations are for like your career, I guess. If you want this to be your actual job, is to make indie games, then you have different goals. You need something that's like sustainable.
Yeah.
But if you're working a job too, I mean, success looks different probably. So.
Yeah, I mean, for me, success is, I mean, I work a full-time job. I'm not planning on quitting it. So success is, I want to make a game that I love. I want to find a niche group of people that also enjoy it, hopefully. And that's success. Like, money isn't really the thing because it's not going to change my life either way. And I don't think this game in particular is going to be the big hit because it's not going to blow anybody's minds. It's a lot of stuff they've seen before in a lot of ways. So, I don't know if I'm being too blunt
No,
about my own game.
I think it's pretty different. I'll be honest. I like his game. It's cool.
I appreciate that. It was a good, different opinion on my own product.
It's hard to look at your own product objectively.
It's very easy. It's actually, and I've found it's better to be more cynical about it and to undersell it and expect the worst because you may actually more pleasantly surprise.
Oh, that's a great one. Can I interject on that?
Sure.
Setting expectations. That is so uber important, whether it's on Steam or wherever you're selling a game. But if you don't set the right expectations, you're going to set people up for disappointment, right? So if people think they're buying a 10-hour game and it's 2 hours, big problem.
Yeah.
Set expectations about your
Yeah,
game.
that's a really good point. Yeah, people should know what they're getting.
So I actually put I don't put it on the Steam page because I should have, but I just haven't bothered to change it. But when I sold Sinker on the mobile sites, I put how long it takes to play. Hour and a half, 2.5 hours. So don't get disappointed if you finish it that time. You know, and it's important.
Yeah,
So-
definitely be very clear.
What about, you talked a little bit before about sales. Give us a little more detail on how sales affects, the Steam sales affect the actual sales of the game. I mean, what percentage of the games are you guys selling during sales?
It's probably times 10 for me or something.
Order of magnitude.
Yeah.
So from one day to the sale day, it's 10 times as many.
Do you notice a difference between the major sales, like winter sale, summer sale, versus these one-off sales? Tell us about that.
So the winter and summer sales are the two sales that they're unique in that you get the Discovery Queue people. And Discovery Queue people that want to go and look at their Discovery Queue in exchange for Steam trading cards, which are actually cool. I love them. But so these people are going to go look at your game. In exchange, they're going to get a free trading card. And this only happens in the winter and summer sales. So you'll get most of your traffic during the winter and summer sales for that reason alone.
And do the trading cards, it's worth it. Especially if you already have a bunch of art, which if you're making a game, by the end of it, you should have a bunch of art.
Explain a visibility round. Can anybody
That's a
explain
good
that?
question.
I think everybody
we
asks
did
that.
haven't done one yet.
We did one. Steam basically lets you do up to 3, I think,
It's
4
like
or 5 maybe.
Wait,
Extra
is
pushes
this covered by
after
NDA?
release.
Do you know? Can we talk about this?
Well,
You
maybe. Okay.
Yeah, maybe
All
not.
we can say is it's probably not important because they've been nerfed.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's not a big deal anymore.
Okay.
what I understand of it, it basically is just like a reminder that reminds people on your wish list that you exist.
So
It's
how-
not really a big
Yeah.
thing anymore.
How are we doing? You guys have specific questions? Can we make this more of a Q&A? Is anybody curious about anything about launching your game on Steam? Oh yeah. Right.
Okay. Charlie had his hand up first.
So there's there's quite a few there's quite a few games out there that have gone into early access and never have exited early access. When you put a game into early access, is that like a fear that it's set in your mind, or is there something that you can do to kind of combat that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I was worried about that for a while, but then you get to a point where you're like, I can see the end of this tunnel, and I've been on this project long enough to really know how long it takes me, how long every aspect takes me. And so even if I'm off just a little bit on like how long some of the updates might take me, or maybe one's a little longer, I think as long as you keep updates and you keep communication and you're sure you're gonna finish this thing, whether it's on Steam or not, that's the time to do it. I wouldn't go in like, I have this game idea, or I'm a year into this game idea. I think you need to definitely know.
Do you feel like there's cynicism around early access at this point, or?
I was worried about cynicism, but honestly, like as an indie developer, I think it's they give you tons of leeway.
But I mean, from the customer perspective, like people don't want to buy an early access
There
game.
definitely is. So like you're getting way less people who actually will commit to buying it. But I do think wish list still seems pretty good.
So I have an interesting opinion on this because I decided not to do early access on Steam, and I did it on itch.io because I didn't want to have this problem, and I still see a lot of people making comments on Steam like, oh yeah, I'll definitely pick this up after it's out of early access,
which is fair.
you know? Which is totally cool, and a lot of people don't want to buy on itch, which is fine. It keeps things under control, but
So one of the things that, from my point of view, what a lot of people see as early access is, holy crap, we've run out of money, let's gauge how much interest is in this game so that we could maybe possibly finish the game, or we'll just throw something together, just sell it. And
it's kind of like a late stage Kickstarter in a way. Yeah.
Well, they have that section of why are you in early access, and once I kind of realized that's a thing that's kind of appearing on your page, I think hopefully people are actually reading that. But
I mean, to me,
the big thing is messaging.
The games
why
that
you're in
really
there.
need early access are like online multiplayer and stuff like that,
Don't
where
do
they
it.
really need to test with a smaller audience.
Adventure games, visual novels, no early access. People don't want to get the story spoiled, right?
Yeah,
It doesn't
no
make any
story-driven.
sense, right?
Yeah. So we had another question. Did you have one?
So would you say that early access is a good way to get people to test your game and offer feedback for you to make adjustments? I've noticed they kind of did that with a game called Unturned and another game, Beasts.
Those have been out in early access for a while, though. I think the landscape has changed a bit, and there are probably better ways to get feedback than, if that's your only goal, maybe there are better ways to get feedback. Coming to MomoCon is a great way to get feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that I've been reading recently about early access, like there was a great article by Jake Burkett recently where he was talking about, the article was actually about, gauging first week Steam sales by wish list numbers. But he also talked about how did that differ from early access to full release, and he was saying that most of the developers he talked to didn't have, like if you looked at the bump that people get when they release, the bump from early access release and then going into release was less than the total bump that people got just from releasing without early access. Does that make sense? Yeah, so I don't know if I know I didn't really answer your question, but it's...
Yes, Stu, you actually talked about how it feels like you have like 2 releases now, and it sort of muddies the waters almost in terms of reaching out to people. Yeah.
That's why I didn't want to do it either, so...
But so the game that I have is like, I've been back and forth on this so much. The reason I landed where I landed was the parts of my game are like little slices. So it's kind of like Mega Man, where you choose a boss, you choose a level, you get an upgrade. And I just saw how I could just release one slice, add another slice, add a very clear cut. So I was hoping that wouldn't muddy the waters as much. It'd be like a lot more like, this boss is released now, this boss is released, and hopefully trying to kind of get a community growing.
So the one thing you should definitely take away from this is that every game is unique. We have 4 different games. Every game is going to be different, and what works for my game or Stu's game or Robert's or Kevin's may not work for your game. It's going to depend. You need to look at, if you're making a game similar to those games and they got benefit from early access, maybe you should consider it too, But if your game is more like games that don't do early access, think about why that is. Why do people not do it? So that's why it's important to do the market research, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hold on, we had one other question before we come back to you. Go ahead.
You may not want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I'm curious, did you all create companies before you released your first game on Steam, or did you just do it as an individual?
I did create my company first.
Yeah.
I don't actually think that's the best move necessarily, but
Why do you say that?
there's just a lot of overhead and it puts you in a certain mindset. I would have rather get my game probably like coming soon is up at least. I would have rather get to that point maybe.
So you know,
that
the corporate tax structure changed significantly this year also, and my wife's an attorney, this is not legal advice. But she was telling me we might want to reorganize.
That's what I heard.
interesting.
And into an S corp. So I did an LLC. But
Yeah, LLCs are really inexpensive to do in Georgia. It costs you
$50 a year.
$100 the first time and then $50 a year after. Just do that. That's all you really need to do. It doesn't change your taxes that much.
no, in fact, you just file taxes just like normal.
And it puts you-
It's what they call a pass-through entity.
Right, and so that's a really inexpensive thing to do, create an LLC, and that gives you a little bit of liability protection. Again, we're not lawyers, but it's a good thing to do.
Also, it doesn't take that long, so like, don't do it thinking, I think we're gonna release this year. Do it like the month before.
Well, plus, I mean, the reason to do it is because, like I was just saying, the corporate tax structure is different
Oh,
from the
that's true.
personal income tax structure, so
But that assumes you're making money.
that assumes you're making money. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Also,
Also-
if you are gonna write stuff off, sorry.
I've been
I'm doing
carrying
it under the
losses for a
assumption
while.
of having a full-time job, don't do it until you have to, but if you're gonna actually write stuff off, you're doing it more like a secondary job.
See, that's my big word of advice is don't quit your day job until you have a game that's actually looking promising, because
Well,
that's what I did.
I mean,
So-
yeah, and I did the same
It's all
thing, but I also did consulting work, which is another reason I set up my LLC. So I had a good reason to do it, and so it all depends on your situation. Yeah. Back in the back?
So, sort of laying back to the question before, how do you actually make like a company or an LLC?
How do you make a LLC?
There's online forms. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a form you fill out it's like the Georgia Secretary of State, I think.
There's actually the Georgia Game Developers Association has some links on their Facebook page that some lawyers in the organization have to help you out with that.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. That's nice.
Little plug for the GGDA.
We actually didn't talk about Steam Direct.
Oh, yeah.
You were wanting us to bash it.
Well, yes. I know I'm gonna go off that. So I know this is a panel about launching your game on Steam, and I know I want to do the bash Steam Direct, but because there's so much clutter going on the Steam store right now, and with the Nintendo Switch and indie games being so successful with that on the rise, do you guys have any thoughts?
You know, I forgot. I did
Lots of
write.
thoughts, yeah.
I wrote down some stats actually. Let me tell you. I forgot to mention these. So in 2017, how many games do you think were launched on Steam? Anybody want to guess?
It was a ton. I read the number at one point, but I don't remember. It was like 8,000.
It's like doubling every year.
Yeah, it was 7,696. So you're very close. And of those games, the top 100 accounted for 50% of all the revenue on Steam. So think about that for a second. 7,700 games, only 100 covered 50% of the revenue.
If your game's good for a console, you're gonna want to go to console.
Yeah, remember they're curated, right? Steam Direct, anybody with $100 can put their game on Steam and get people to look at their game and even buy your game. You have to actually be invited on. You can ask to be invited on these Switch and things.
But you know, Steam can be a good way to kind of work the kinks out in your game before you go to a console also. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing an early access anywhere except Steam.
I'm a big fan of Steam Direct. I've done the Greenlight and the Direct, and I think the Direct is a lot less hassle. And as long as you don't abuse the system and make what Valve calls games-shaped objects, you actually make real games, then you're going to do all right.
For me, actually, I wish that we had a chance to do Steam Greenlight. We ended up doing Steam Direct, but I think there's a lot of community building that you got from Greenlight, so that's one differing opinion there.
But it's gone and you can't bring it back.
I'll definitely say this, when I did Greenlight, I still had people saying, oh yeah, I remember your game from Greenlight or whatever,
Yeah.
so it's kind of, it is a, you don't have that?
I feel like it was long enough ago, so I got greenlit really early.
Yeah, you did it before me.
I didn't expect
Yeah.
that. I was just like, this will be something, and then like a friend of ours was was like, I just got greenlit. And I was like,
Right, we
I
were actually at a meetup here, and he was like, "Oh, guys, I got greenlit
So I
in
put my
5
art
days."
up, and the art looks good, but you know, I'm still 3 years out from launch, and I think by the time it came around to when I was ready for early access, I don't think I see anybody left over. I mean, that may not be true. There might be some wishlist conversions. There might be some people who got on my mailing list.
That's more like Reddit and stuff.
I don't feel like I
And,
probably saw
forums.
Yeah.
Any other questions or anything? Okay.
So I think we touched upon a little bit earlier, but is there a fear of like muddying the waters when it comes to like a community built around yourself, where you just like release games that's just so bad, you're like, oh, maybe I should rename my LLC just like it's not associated with it or something.
It doesn't seem possible.
Should I restate the question? Let me. So you're saying should I reset my company to
No, it's just
disassociate from a game?
Is it possible to release games that you worry might affect like people might not come to buy your next game because you're first?
And you shouldn't release
So
those
change your
games.
company if your game sucked?
No.
I guess you could do that. Yeah. Might not be a bad strategy. Maybe am I not understanding?
Oh no, I'm just like, is that a worry?
I think what would help quelch that fear will be showing that game to a bunch of people who aren't your friends and family first before you get to the point where you're like, I think I should release this. So just get a bunch of opinions on it. I mean, even Gorilla, like going into a QT or something.
Go to a meetup. There's like a lot of meetups around. You will find 10 game developers to play your game, and they will give you opinions about it. And hopefully tell you where you're weak and where you're strong.
And if you don't like to do that, put it up on Congregate or Newgrounds or Armor
That's true,
Games,
too.
because you'll get a ton of feedback. And
Yeah.
it's all good. And if you get bad feedback, you can fix it, right? Or people are telling you need to fix it, so you can fix it. Then take it to Steam.
Game Jolt would be a great place for like a demo or like a little bite-sized version of your concept.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about demos. Did you guys release demos?
I did on Game Jolt.
I did.
itch.io.
Yeah, I did on Itch and Game Jolt. We got featured on them and got a lot of great feedback and stuff. So I think it was a good experience for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steam.
Yeah.
But demos on Steam itself, probably not such a great idea. It competes with your own product, and just don't do it.
Honestly, the other thing I would say is that the demo was one of the things that helped me on Greenlight too.
That's yeah.
You know, having that demo up, people were like, "Oh, this is legit. This guy could actually make this game." They thought.
More questions?
You in the cave, Doctor Strange.
How viable do you think alternative like funnels of profit are, like microtransaction stuff for indie games?
On Steam specifically?
Yeah.
Good question. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, the advice I've gotten on mobile, at least, is that indies don't make much money from a free-to-play model because it takes just so much business sense and iteration
And
to get that
psychology.
working. Yeah, it's like making a whole game on top of your game almost. I don't know about on Steam though.
With Steam, you definitely want to make sure your game isn't messaged as a mobile game. I think that could be a big part of it. You know, I mean, there's a lot of successful companies that do stuff like with the microtransactions in a positive way, like League of Legends or something.
Or even
But
like
as an indie,
Brawlhalla.
it's definitely scary.
Brawlhalla was kind of an indie, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Also worth mentioning, on mobile again, the free-to-play model doesn't get you in the charts as easily because you're competing with these games making millions of dollars a day. So I'm sure on Steam that's similar. If you're in the free-to-play bucket on Steam, you're probably up against some really tough competition. So
DLC could be good if it makes sense, if it feels like they have a complete package with the game.
Go ahead, Charlie.
So, a couple comments, not really questions, but one, another thing that a lot of individuals see from especially indie developers as a bad taste in their mouth when it comes to early access is basically we're paying to QA test your game. The other thing is when it comes to LLCs,
Well, you don't have to buy. I mean,
well, a lot, like you got to pay to get the early access. But
Yeah.
the other thing is with the LLC, two things. One, make sure that you are got turned ready or close to do whatever your product is, because you can only write it off for so long if you're not actually bringing in any revenue. Then it becomes a hobby and you can't write off anything. Two, a very good reason to be an LLC, especially when you're oppressed, is to protect your ass. So if someone comes after you and tries to sue you, they sue the company and not yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a game development perspective, the big thing is if you're working with someone, make sure you have a contract. That is the biggest thing that I would tell you, and don't just give away percentages of your game willy-nilly. You know, this is like, if you're working with somebody and you're like, oh, let's split the game, you know, make sure that there's some language that says they have to have actually worked on half the game.
Yeah, doing it based on how many hours they work is good.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
What do you think about games made in the RPG Maker program, and how well do they do on Steam and other platforms?
So how well do RPG Maker games do on Steam?
Yeah.
You guys,
There've been good games.
can you even name one?
To the Moon.
To the moon.
Yeah.
That's an
Yeah,
awesome
that's
game.
true.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
I think the key is, and this goes with any engine, don't make sure it doesn't look like the engine that it is. Like don't use like pre-made assets. Like spend the money. I know it sucks, but like if you don't have an artist, maybe you need to hire an artist, because that's what's going to take you to the next step. You see a lot of games out there using, you know, pre-made assets, or just kind of they feel like a lot of other games. I think the big thing is finding your own identity.
That's a prototype.
Yeah, it's hard because it's expensive. I mean, is it still considered, you know, kind of out of the package if you buy, like, an RPG Maker site, they have a store where they'll sell you specialized packs that don't come with the software? Or
I mean, it's still asset packs
Yeah, I
that
think
other
people
people.
recognize
I'm not saying don't use assets ever. I just think if you're using it, find a way to make it unique. Find a way to make it stand out and feel different.
Maybe use backgrounds or something, but the characters need to be.
I think it's
custom
totally
made,
valid
possibly, or
to
something.
make a game, remix it, and it could be the coolest game ever. It uses all pre-made assets, but it's just how do you find a way to make that unique?
I mean, yeah, and plus, like, they don't have to be like super, like, high res or high quality. I mean, look at like a game like Undertale, you know, that managed to have a lot of personality without like the most advanced looking art.
It's very stylish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I've found is it's best to partner with an artist. Somebody
Yeah.
who you can like really work together as a team.
Yeah.
Split the profits, that kind of thing.
Stu has a huge advantage there. He's like super talented artist.
You say that. I got bugs, so it kind of evens out.
The art looks amazing.
More questions?
Yeah, in the very back, yellow.
So if you're trying to make an adventure game, because doing early access is not really the best idea if you're wanting to have your story told as a complete narrative, right? Besides using the coming soon as a marketing advantage to being a small team, what's another way that you can manipulate Steam specifically to kind of market your game, or clever ways to kind of get it to work with you?
So how do you build a community around a story-driven game without releasing it early? Yeah, good question. You ever been to Reddit?
Yeah, I've been a bit on there, but sometimes it's people can speak with the right intentions, but a lot of times it's coming from a place that's not actually from experience, and it can be hard to pick through the weeds sometimes.
It's hard, I think, to market a game and not make it seem like you don't give a crap about what anyone says. You're just like, buy my game, play my game.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I would say making some smaller games first is a good way to do this. Get people, like, build a community around a line of stuff you're making, so that when you get to your big story game, you have people.
You know, a game who did this really well recently was, and you guys may have heard of this, Bendy and the Ink Machine. And they did it by releasing chapters, and they did the first one as a free download, and then sold the rest for $5. I thought that was brilliant for that type of game. But it was very polished, though, so make sure you have a polished product. Anybody else have a question? Any other questions? Who hasn't asked a question yet? Yeah, you back there in the back.
What would you say to the, for those of you who do release in early access, what would you say to the idea that maybe a game gets, the customer gets a bad taste in their mouth from an early version that's broken or maybe has some bugs to it and not quite finished? Is that a concern that you guys deal with?
Yeah, all the time. But I don't know what you can really do about that.
Well, I
Except
mean,
message, hey, here's the new version.
Yep.
You had that problem?
Well, I think Steam buyers in early access are pretty forgiving about bugs, real bugs. Even in a fully released game, they don't give you negative reviews solely for bugs in your software. They're really forgiving about that. But if you don't address them, then you're in trouble. So I don't.
Yeah, I think it's about. Sorry, I think it's about building a reputation for actually doing stuff about the things people are bringing
Be
up.
responsive, and it's okay to do that.
Yeah, maybe it's a good thing.
Over communicating.
Yeah.
You could show people that you're actually responding to their bug.
Yeah. Even just saying, hey, thanks, I'm gonna look at that, I'm gonna put it on my list, is probably better than not doing that. So.
Any other questions? You in the front.
I'm gonna give you a scenario and then ask, what would you do? Alright?
Okay.
Your game has a niche audience. Niche. Or niche. The biggest part of your game is that there's a genre for it, but it's not identified. There's no name. How do you find the people that already want your game but don't know what that is?
So your game has genre confusion. How do you build an audience?
Yes.
Yeah, good question.
And one that I'm very familiar with.
Go for it then.
Being
Answer.
Yeah. I don't have an answer, unfortunately. I think we use tags. Tags are definitely valuable for that because you can sort of combine genres and find the overlap that way. And also, I think the main thing I do about this is just making the messaging of my game clear. Like I try and make you know, just looking at a screenshot, what it is, I guess.
Yeah, boil it down. Like maybe it doesn't land in a specific genre, but how do you boil it down to like the most simple, basic thing that they can possibly understand?
Yeah.
Because they should be able to understand an idea, even if it's not doesn't fit perfectly.
Yeah, like one key idea.
Or take a
very
look
clear.
at other games that have similar problems. Like a game that I heard a talk by the guy who made it is Crypt of the Necrodancer, which had a lot of genre confusion, because it's a rhythm game and a roguelike and it's a little, and he has a really good talk about this very topic. I can't remember his name, but if you look up Crypt of the Necrodancer, it's on YouTube. Okay, Charlie.
Okay, I apologize to everyone. I'm actually a journalist and reviewer, so I like. I'm making comments, not questions. When it comes to episodic content, when it comes to chapters, one thing that if y'all are interested in doing it, one thing you got to be careful of is if you give a free chapter away and you're making an individual pay for the next chapter, make sure that it's a longer length. If you gave me a 45-minute free chapter and then you turn around and maybe pay $5.99 for a 45-minute long chapter, that's not going to work. Also remember that if you're episodic content, you got to have a steady schedule. You can't be like, this month, and then 7 months later.
Kentucky Route Zero.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Anybody else have anything? Yes, go ahead.
Okay, do you suggest if you're starting out to only release on Steam or one platform and see how it goes, or would you try different platforms in addition to, like, I'll say Steam?
Which other platforms are you thinking
Or is
about?
it like, itch.io?
All right, so I made a list of platforms actually that I didn't mention. So there's GOG, which is more retro type games. There's itch.io, GameJolt, Congregate, who's actually coming out with a new site now called Cartridge, which is very similar to Steam. Then there's Humble Store, which is like, they sell Steam keys. They're like a Steam key reseller. Green Man Gaming, also kind of a reseller. Any other ones I missed?
There's lots of small ones.
Yeah, like G2A, but that was more like thievery.
Well, would you suggest only choosing one and seeing how it goes, or put it out in different areas if you're allowed to? I don't know what Steam's rules are. If they you can only put your game there.
I mean, it depends. I would say if you feel like your game is at a risky place, then itch.io or GameJolt can be a good place to start before you go to Steam because they're free and there's a possibility you can get some downloads and some people.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning Steam is going to be the big numbers of all of those that you mentioned.
So you want to be ready for Steam.
Right. But Steam doesn't restrict you. I think that might have been part of your question. You can put your game up on any storefront you want as long as you don't put Steam out. Like you can't have a free game on itch and a $10 game on Steam. They won't allow that. But as long as you're fair, you can have it as many storefronts as you want.
So you would suggest starting out with a free one before going to paying $100 for Steam.
I'm going to tell you the same thing we said before. It depends on your game. It's like, you have to see what other similar games maybe did.
You get that $100 back, I might add, after you've sold. I think it's 1,000.
I think something around there.
So also just think about that market, like orient yourself with these different sites, kind of see what they're doing. Game Jolt's definitely like a Kickstarter demo site right now, and it's really interesting, and that's kind of their thing. Not that that's all it is, but people expect kind of free short experiences there. Itch is very genre influenced, so like visual novels do amazing there, so actually releasing a free episode there of a visual novel would be great.
But
Whereas
Itch is
like
also
my
mostly
action old school game did not do good on Itch at all, because it's just not the type of game that would really kind of fit there. So definitely just, again, like what we're all saying, but
yeah,
that way to promote, I don't know, it kind of made me think about like how do you promote that episodic visual novel. That Itch would be great there.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I think that's what Bending the Ink Machine did, is they actually started on itch.io, and they got pretty popular just from that.
Don't ignore the web portals. Congregate, Newgrounds, Armor Games, huge for episodic. If you're going to give away a demo of your visual novel, do it there.
I think we're running short on time, so maybe one more question. Anybody got anything?
All right then.
Oh, okay, Dr. Strange.
I think you said earlier that your game took 1 to 2 hours to complete. Seeing as how that's within the Steam return window, do you ever find an issue with people getting the full value out of your game and then asking for a refund?
Yeah, that is a good question. And I actually have numbers. I've talked to other developers. You're going to get about 2% refund rate. That's pretty normal. And mine isn't any different than anybody else's, so it's not a big concern. But I've actually seen people review my game and say, "Oh, it's a great game, and you can finish it and return it within 2 hours." Oh, thanks. But I wouldn't worry about it. It's not a big concern. I haven't noticed any problem. My game's like other games in that regard.
I can back them up on that with our $5 game. It lasts maybe an hour or so. Haven't had any issues with refunds.
There are always a few bad apples. Just ignore them. It's not worth your time to worry about it.
It's kind of the same as the piracy problem.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
People who are going to do that is the same quantity that's going to pirate your game, and there's nothing you can do.
And a little bit of piracy helps, so don't worry about it.
What's your solution? It's like, well, I have time to make a 2-hour game, but people are going to return it tonight to make a 5-hour. You have the resources to do what you can do.
All right, cool. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.